Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, on this gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous Monday night in Lubbock, Texas, March 4th. We're coming to you live right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios and on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. So we're glad to be here tonight. It's going to be a great show. I think we're going to do some, this is our Bring Health to Church, Taking Health to Church night. And so it was a great message yesterday, and I can't wait to get into it and share it with you. We're in the Greener Pastures series, and we're talking about the next thing, right? The next thing is the best thing, but it's not always the best thing. And we've talked about the next, last week we talked about the next possession. I guess that was 2 weeks ago. We talked about the next possession. And the first week we talked about the next place. Well, tonight we're going to talk about the next person, and it's really going to be I think it's going to be really cool because there's a lot of tie-in with what's going on in our health, and that's what we're trying to do with this show is take this Monday night show, take the lesson that we learned at church yesterday, and see if we can apply it to what's going on in our life today. I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm super excited about the show. I hope you guys will stick around and listen to it. So. The weekend was great. Got our blood work done on Saturday. Got the results back today. I'm going to be going over that tomorrow night on the show and talk about blood work, how to read it, what's going on with it, what you learn from it when you get your blood work done, and show you guys where we are. I wanted to do it on Saturday because Saturday was the 2-year anniversary of when I quit eating sugar, and so I wanted to see how I'm doing with the things that I've been eating and what it's doing to my body. There was some things that we got to work on that I think are interesting findings that we could talk about tomorrow night. But that's why I wanted to do it. It's because I had that 2-year anniversary coming up on Saturday, and we did it. It's been, when you go 2 years without having a bowl of ice cream or without a Snickers bar or a Reese's cup or a piece of bread, a crouton, nothing for 2 years. And that ties so strongly into what the message was yesterday. That's why I'm excited about the show and excited about the message that we got yesterday at church because, man, there was some deep, deep philosophical, spiritual teachings that was going on yesterday that I think is going to have a lot to do with our health. And I can testify as a person that's actually living it now, I could testify to what I learned yesterday from that sermon. So, and how it relates to my health. And so that's kind of what the weekend was, did that, got some studying done, got some things. If you guys are out there and you're one of those people that happens to like invent things or solve problems or build houses, that little smoke detector beep thing, when the battery is going dead on your smoke detector and that thing starts beeping like early in the morning when you think you're going to get a chance to sleep in, and then it just starts and there's nothing you can do, right? You can't get away from it. The ladder is in the garage, like it's 15 feet up to the ceiling. And for some reason, we got to put a smoke detector at the highest point of the ceiling. And so that took up pretty much a lot of my day yesterday, trying to figure out how I was going to get that 15-foot smoke detector battery changed. And I'm not going to tell you how I did it because I'd get in trouble. I got in trouble from my wife and my daughter and got questioned by my parents. They kind of thought it was a little questionable, which all of them were right. They all were right, kind of how we did it, but we got it done and we didn't break anything. We didn't crash. But if anybody out there knows how to solve that problem, I'd appreciate it. Just send me a text. You can send me a message on social media, and because that's health, that's mental health right there, right? That's not, I can't be the only one out there that deals with that mental health problem of what to do with that, like how to solve that. Can't we? I mean, we got apps these days, right? I mean, do we seriously need to have a battery backup on a smoke detector that's 15 foot in the air? I mean, is there not a better option than that? I think there is. I think there is, and I think there's somebody out there that could solve that problem for us. And if you're one of those people, man, you ought to be rich. You got to be rich to solve that problem. I'd buy 4 or 5 smoke detectors from you. I don't know how many we have in the house, but I'd buy them all. So, yeah. But it's funny how your mental health gets carried over into the weekend because you had a whole bunch of things on your schedule that you thought you were going to do, and that's what you ended up doing. So, hey, I got a really quick article that I just want to just bring to your attention. I know it's not something that is really in our wheelhouse, but I saw this today. Somehow along the way, I got a subscription to Nature magazine, and I'm not real sure why. There was something I wanted to see, or something I was studying, or some article in it, and so I ended up with this subscription to Nature magazine. So I just look through there every once in a while. Most of the stuff is not in my wheelhouse, not something that I really want to talk about. But I did see this article. It says save lives in the next pandemic. Ensure vaccine equity now. And I was like, okay, they got my attention. I'll click on that one. I know what it's not health and wellness, right? It's not really what our deal is all about. But there's some stuff going on that I just think you should know, and I think you should know because I think it's important for your health, right? Like the next pandemic, because I'm pretty sure the last pandemic was the 1918 Spanish flu, and we went from 1918 to 2020, so 102 years before we had a pandemic that was global, right? But now we're actually preparing for the next pandemic, like it's going to happen again. Well, I wonder how it happened the first time. I wonder how this one happened. I know how the first one happened, and there was a war going on, and right after that war, a lot of those guys came home and sick, and then it spread, and I'm pretty sure it started in Kansas, the 1918 Spanish flu, if I remember right. But this last one, there's a lot of evidence that there was a bunch of people in our country and in China that were working on that stuff and have been working on it for a long time, right? So, and people die because of it. And so I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a studier. I'm a studier, and I'm a guy that pays attention to people when they talk. And I'm a guy that watches a person talk over and over and over again, kind of like on this show. You've seen me now for 6 months. We just started. Tonight is the beginning of the 7th month that we've been doing this show. And if you want to know what I believe, all you got to do is watch this show and see how many times I've said it over and over and over again. Now, I may not be right, but at least you can count on knowing what it is that I believe, because I've told you it in I don't know how many shows we've done so far. Well, when I study those people and I listen to them say something, and then I listen to them contradict themselves, and then I listen to them contradict themselves, and then I hear somebody that says the same thing over and over, and that really believes it, I try to learn from those people and save lives in the next pandemic, ensure vaccine equity now. Yeah, so this article is just written about how when the whole thing came out, since 2022, member states of the World Health Organization have been negotiating a new treaty, provisionally termed the Pandemic Agreement. If adopted, it would transform how the world handles pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. Opinions differ on what negotiations should prioritize, but no issue has captivated public attention as much as vaccine equity. So during the COVID pandemic, scientists began to design vaccine candidates only a few hours after the first SARS-CoV-2 genome sequence was shared. By the end of 2020, mass vaccination had begun in the United States and Europe. Yeah. So high-income countries promised to share vaccines through voluntary WHO COVID-19 vaccine global access programs, but failed to meet their commitments. When South Africa and India appealed to the World Trade Organization for an emergency waiver of intellectual property rights related to COVID-19 vaccines so that every country could start their own manufacturing, high-income countries blocked the proposal for months. The refusal of wealthier nations to cooperate had cost between 200,000 and 1.3 million lives by the end of 2021 in low and middle income countries. That's the point that's the part of the article I wanted to talk about. I don't really want to talk much more about this article, but the refusal of wealthier nations to cooperate had cost between 200,000 and 1.3 million lives by the end of 2021 in low and middle income countries. Well, what about in low and middle income communities? What about in our own communities amongst ourselves? How about the things that went on? And what these people are saying is that it's the refusal of these people to get a vaccine that caused them to die. And I'm going to present to them, it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you got vaccine and you died. It's whether you were healthy when you got COVID or not. That's what is truth. That's what I believe to be truth. Don't let this stuff fool you. Now we're going to all those guys that call themselves leaders that aren't leaders, that act like they're leaders, but they're really not. They just have some title that gives them a chance to be a leader, but they don't know anything about leadership and haven't ever understood and been in a leadership position. You got to watch out for those people. And now that I'm older and I understand it just a little bit better, there's a lot of that stuff that's going on out there. I didn't know it when I was younger, but I get it now. But you didn't die because you didn't get a vaccine in any country, on any place on the planet, right? You died because you weren't healthy when you got COVID. That's what killed you. And you weren't able to handle the COVID. So one thing I did is I just looked out, because there's been a bunch of new studies come out. And one of them right here in the, I don't know what this is. It's International Journal of Molecular Science, 2021, October, and published online 2021. This is from the National Institutes of Health, and it's talking about vitamin D and COVID, and it'll come down here to the very end, and it talks about all of the good parts of vitamin D and all of how much you should take and what's going on with vitamin D levels. And it comes down here to this bottom one, and it says, it was found that vitamin D and its biologically active hydroxy derivatives are likely to inhibit the action of this long receptor. This results in blocking of the fusion between the viral spike protein and ACE2, which is required for viral entry into the host. Vitamin D and its biologically active hydroxy derivatives are likely to inhibit the action of this, which means they're likely to inhibit the spike protein from gaining access to the host. Now, we know now that when that spike protein gains access to the host, there's a whole lot of crap that goes on right there, right? So one of the things that is crucial about this whole thing, and what they'll get to at the end of the article right here, is the amount of a randomized prospective open label study in India of 87 patients with COVID-19 and vitaminosis D reported that supplementing vitamin D in addition to standard care improved inflammatory markers significantly. Yeah, but once you get it, it's not a good sign. You got to get ahead of it right there. In the patients that received 60,000 IUs of daily supplemental vitamin D for 8 days, the level of C-reactive protein, lactase dehydrogenase, interleukin-6, ferritin, as well as neutrophils to lymphocyte ratios showed significant improvement compared to patients receiving no supplements. So I get a lot of kickback and pushback against patients when I talk to them about the level of vitamin D that they need to take. And they'll say, well, I take 1,000 milligrams or IUs, or I take 500 IUs. And I just want you to know that what the literature says is that it's not high enough. A randomized controlled trial also showed that daily administration for 2 weeks of 5,000 IUs, but not 10,000 IUs, was reduced recovery time in patients with mild to moderate symptoms. There was also seen from their decreased in BMI and interleukin-6 levels over the time. These studies support the potential for vitamin D supplementation to be used in adjunct therapy to improve clinical outcomes. So this is just an article that talks about Hey, look, I've been taking between 5,000 and 10,000 IUs of vitamin D for years. And especially these last 4 years. I got my vitamin D checked on Saturday. It's 74. So I'm not concerned whatsoever about I'm looking for that target. I'm looking for that 70, 80, 90 target of vitamin D level with 5,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. And that's so I just want you to know that just one article right there talking about the things that we talk about from health and the things that we talk about on this show every single day, every night from 6 to 7 that we talk about when we're talking about health and then are things that matter to your health and things that can help you that in the next pandemic that we're already planning. And how are we planning it? How do they know it's going to happen? Because they're planning it in labs. They're working on stuff they shouldn't be working on, and that it costs people their lives and their livelihood when that happens. So, yes, I'm passionate about it, and no, I'm not apologizing for it, and I'm not backing down ever again about it. Not 1 second am I going to do that, because it's health and wellness, and it matters when it's your family member. It matters when your family member is facing something that they might have gotten from this COVID. It matters when you lose your daughter and your husband in 17 days. That matters to me. And those guys jacking around with that stuff that knew they weren't supposed to be doing that did it anyway and got it spread out all over the world, that got people in trouble. And what I wanted to make sure is that the people that we have a chance to reach and the people that we talk to on this show, they know that there's things you can do as simple as taking your vitamin D, making sure that you're getting your vitamin D levels in the realm that they're supposed to. If you've got some sort of health problem, if you've got a thyroid issue or something like that you need to consult your medical doctor about, then make sure that by all means do that. But don't be afraid to get your vitamin D levels up. It's good for your immune system. And it's good for you the way that your body works. And it's hard to do when you don't get any sunshine. When you don't get any sunshine on your skin, then you have to supplement with your vitamin D, and you got to get it high enough to make it work. So that's an article of the day. That's all I want to say about that. And we'll get into stuff that's more inspiring than that. So let's talk about yesterday's sermon. So we've been talking about greener pastures, and this is all about health too. So don't think I'm preaching to you, because I'm not preaching to you, even though maybe I am a little. But that's not the point of it. The point of it is to take the lesson and bring it into life. Take the lesson and bring it into life. And since what we talk about on the show is health, then let's take the lesson and let's bring it into health. And let's see if we could talk about what is there any translation between what we're learning in church and how we live our lives on a daily basis. And I believe there is, because I believe that the creator of the body is the one that wrote the book. Like, I think that's where the book came from. And so when I'm studying health, the more I know about this book, the more I know about health. And I have never found anything that contradicts anything that I know. Everybody says science and religion shouldn't mix. And to me, I'm like, well, who do you think made science? Right? Like, it didn't just appear and all of a sudden there was science. No, that's not how it works. Right? The same creator is the one that, now maybe the religion's not the right word, but the teachings, the teachings that we've learned, we can learn something from it if we will humble ourselves a little bit and don't think we know everything, and just try to say, look, what are these messages that we're getting? So yesterday we get to church. They do praise and worship first, and then they do communion at Hillside Church. And the first thing that it was during communion, this is an aside note because this is not the greener pastures that I want to talk about. And but I was sitting there and I was participating in communion yesterday, and I just thought about it for a second. And I don't know if I've ever really deeply thought about what I thought yesterday. I mean, I've gone through I've gone through the different levels of it, but yesterday was kind of hit me pretty hard, and I just wrote this in my notes, and I was talking. It was like communion is the body and the blood, right? So that's what it represents, is the body and the blood. There's a lot to that. The creator of the universe, who made the amazing body and blood, gave it up for all of us. Now, it's the most amazing creation in the universe. The human body, to me, is the most amazing creation in the universe. And the creator, I mean, if you want to study embryology, if you want to study how peripheral nerves, the nerves that are in your arms, actually plug in to your central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord, right? It's not your brain and your spinal cord doesn't grow the nerve out all the way out to your fingers. That's not the way it works. It plugs itself in. If you want to break down how a cell divides and how you have to unwrap the DNA and cut it down the middle, and then you have to split the cell and all that, like if you want to break down how many amino acids it takes to make a protein and how they have to be in a certain order, like, to me, it is amazing. And then you just talk about neurology. Like, we're still trying to figure out neurology, and people have been working on that pretty hard for a while. And so to me, the human body is the most amazing creation of all the creations made by the creator who created all things. So it is the ultimate creation. And he put together a creation that in a form of a savior. And I could just imagine, if you love your kids and you know how proud of your kids that you are, like if you, because I know you've sat in amazement at, like, just when you were pregnant, or when your wife was pregnant, and you went through that whole process, and I know there had to have been a time where you thought to yourself, like, she is growing a human being. like that is one of the most amazing things. There's a human being growing in there, like, with fingers and toes and all that stuff, right? Like, that is just like, wow, right? And when that baby's born, you want a boy or you want a girl or you whatever, and you just get to the point where it's just some of the most unconditional love that you could ever understand, right? You just know it. It's just like, it didn't matter if they had all their fingers and toes. You just love them anyway. It doesn't matter what you got. You just love them anyway. It is only parents understand it, but all parents understand it. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's. I think every one of us who is a parent, like, we understand that level right there of unconditional love. And so you are the creator of the universe. You've created the human body. You've made the most amazing thing in the history, in all of the creation anywhere. And now you've made a son. It's like, and you gave it up. You allowed that son to be crucified on a cross for the Savior of the world. And that's what I wrote right there. It's like the most amazing creation in the universe coming together to make the Savior of the world was given up to death to fulfill a purpose and save the world for all the days to come. To fulfill a purpose. And then I wrote, it's almost unbelievable. I can see where people have a hard time with it, because it's almost unbelievable to think about that right there. Like, and the whole thing was to fulfill a purpose. Like, and that's the story. That's the story that we're going to talk about in Greener Pastures, is the next person in your life, the next person that comes along in your life. And the pastor used it to talk about marriage. And I want to get into it. We're going to have a break here in just a minute. And hang on one second. Hang on 1 second. They lost me on the radio. Let's see what happens when you get on fire. I think sometimes it's like you can't speak too much truth out there, and then the internet will start shutting down on you. Y'all tell me that might be a conspiracy, but it seems like that seems to be true. But all of a sudden, we're not. All of a sudden, we're not working. Social media is working, but my radio is not working. Bear with me, because don't leave me, because I think this is going to be really good right here. What we're about to get into. Okay, we're going to go on with it. I don't know. I may get a text here in just a second. I don't know what happened. We lost our radio feed, and I'm not exactly sure what happened. But I'm going to go ahead and talk, and maybe they'll catch up with us, and maybe they won't. I'm not exactly sure. But the most amazing creation in the universe coming together to make the Savior of the world was given up to death to fulfill a purpose and to defeat death and to fulfill a purpose. And that purpose thing is really what I really think makes the difference is that purpose thing. And so we gotta define that purpose every single day. We gotta have I'm finally getting some feedback from different people that watch the show that say, I can't believe that you could do this show 5 nights a week for an hour. And you've been doing it for 6 months now. You see, that's a lot of content, right? I can tell you the honest truth. It's the purpose. The show is not fabulous. I get it. And I'm working to try to make the show better. And I'm trying to make and then we'll have Chaley on last week, but then all the sound's messed up, right? Or we've got this show that's going on tonight, and then all of a sudden I'm losing stuff right there. Or some days I'm not as prepared as I would like to be or whatever. I'm just not going to make an excuse for myself and say, well, it's not good enough, so I just won't do it. That's not my purpose. If it is the purpose that keeps driving you, it is the thing that takes you all the way on it, and that purpose is what makes it. It sustains you. It sustains you, right? In the highs and the lows, when you're tired, when you're fabulous, all those things. It sustains you when you really are focused in on your purpose. That's why I think it's so important. It sustained me for 2 years without a piece of bread. For the first time in 50, I went 51 years with it, and and then all of a sudden I was able to come back, and I was able to sustain myself, and it's all just because of my purpose. They're trying to get us back on here. Okay, everyone. Sorry about that. I don't know what we lost you there for a second, and I think we're back on now, and I think we're good to go. So we're just going to go with it. Maybe I'm connected. Maybe I'm talking to you out there. I don't know if anyone can hear me out there in radio land, but we're going to go with it anyway. We're trying to get to this awesome show that we have, that we're talking about with taking health to church. So let's get to it. Greener pastures. We talked about the first week in greener pastures, which was 3 weeks ago. We talked about the next place. And then we talked about the next possession. And yesterday we talked about the next person. And the next person was a whole scripture. It was a whole teaching about marriage. And he said right up front, he said, it's going to be tough on some of you because some of you are having a hard time with this. And he tried to explain how nobody has a perfect marriage. Everyone has an imperfect marriage. And this is Pastor Politz at Hillside. He's like, everyone has either an imperfect, healthy marriage, or they have an imperfect, unhealthy marriage. And that's the two things that you have. You either have an imperfect, healthy marriage, or you have an imperfect, unhealthy marriage. And so he really did get deep into marriage, and he dove deep into the meaning of marriage. He quoted a guy named Tim Keller. I don't know that person, but he quoted a book from him. And what he talked about was how marriage changes us, and what we have to do as we go through marriage. And I can surely attest to this, right? Because the person you got infatuated with, that you fell in love with, that you got married to, more than likely over a period of time is not the same person that you're married to now. Like you go through and things change. And he talked about the things that changes us. Marriage changes you. But can you learn to love the stranger that you married? And that is so funny, because there's times that I've actually told Leslie that. I'm like, I'll look over at her, and sometimes I'm just like, I don't even know who you are. And we've been together since we were 16 years old. I mean, like we dated for 6 years. We've been married for 30 years. So, but there's times where I don't know who, like, because things, what change, like there's things like children changes us, right? Changes the focus of things. Business changes us. Time changes us. Age changes us. Circumstances, environment. Like there's all kinds of things. Jobs. There's all kinds of things that change a person throughout their lifetime. And if they're married to another person, and they put the person that they fell in love with is not the person that they are today. Well, can you learn to love the person? And do you get let down by the person? And he basically got us to John. And he started off in Corinthians, and it was 1 Corinthians 10:13. And I don't have a lot to say about this from a standpoint of health, but I thought it was good to listen a little bit. And it says this in 1 Corinthians 10:13, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. Now, he's talking about what Pastor Polis was talking about yesterday was in marriage, right? No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. Well, the illustration of marriage was so good when it talked about health and what we want to do with our health, right? And I would say the same exact thing. We think that we cannot overcome Dr. Pepper. We think that we cannot overcome cigarettes. We think that we cannot overcome pizza or sugar or corn chips or whatever the thing might be, right? We don't understand how that's possible. We just say, well, I was just tempted. I was tempted this weekend. It was, the grandkids were over and I was tempted this weekend. Or we were out of town and I was tempted this weekend, right? Well, to me, what we could learn from this passage is that's not the temptation that we give into. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. You're not doing anything different than any other guy's doing. You're exactly like you got the same temptations that every other person is dealing with in your walk with health. You got the same temptation to skip your workout. You got the same temptation to just eat some crap tonight. You got the same temptation to just drink that Dr. Pepper or whatever it is, right? And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. But you got to be able to be focused on your purpose, right? Like, think about think about the communion and what Jesus had to endure, and in order to fulfill his purpose, right? But he had a way out of it. He knew if he stayed the course, even though it was fixing to get really nasty, if he stayed the course, he had a way out of it because God is faithful to us, right? Well, I don't think we think about our health that way. I don't think we think about our health from the standpoint of staying the course. I don't think we really get ourselves focused on our purpose enough to really understand that. So he went to John, and he went to John 4, and he's talking to this is going to be cool too, because he's talking to the lady at the well. And this is John 4, and it starts in verse 4. And we've all heard this conversation when he's talking about to the lady at the well. And he says, now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour. All right, so I think that's an important piece of information right there. I think it's important because for us, now he had to go through Samaria. So Jesus was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. When the Lord learned of this, he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar. Like, do you think that was by accident? No. Fulfilling his purpose led him to the places where he could speak into people's lives. Fulfilling his purpose was divine every step along the way. So it wasn't an accident that he came to this well, and he happened to just come to the well near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus was tired from his journey, right? He didn't accidentally show up. Verse 7, when a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into town to buy food. And the pastor points out yesterday, like how this next passage is really important right there. The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans." Right? So you got a single guy talking to a lady at a well of two different types of people. You got the Samaritan and the Jew. It's not really socially appropriate. It's not morally appropriate back in the day. That's not something that would have been a conversation that should have been had, right? But and she's like, "How can you ask me for a drink? We don't associate with each other." It's kind of funny when you read it today, right? Because it's like, really? Like Jesus doesn't associate with us? Well, just think of it from a health standpoint, right? When we're going to talk about something from a health standpoint, who does it not apply to? Because to me, it applies to every single person on the planet. Those 200,000 to 1.3 million poor people in those poor countries should have had someone talking health to those people. They wouldn't have needed that vaccine to live. And I don't think that's the case anyway. I think that whole sentence was made up. But Jesus was talking to them. He didn't care. He didn't buy into those rules that we can't talk to each other, right? Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it was that asked you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Sir, the woman said, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it, and did also his sons and his flocks and herds? Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. So I'm sitting there yesterday, and it's like, what does this have? First of all, what does this have to do with greener pastures, and what does this have to do with marriage? And where is he going? Where is Pastor Pollitt's going with this whole thing, right? And it's like, why is this conversation taking place? Because we kind of get what he's trying to say right there, right? I'll finish it and then I'll come back. The woman said to him, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty, and you have to keep coming here to draw water. He told her, go, call your husband and come back. I have no husband, she replied. Jesus said to her, you are right when you say that you have no husband. The fact is that you've had 5 husbands. The man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. Now, it's got to be kind of mind-blowing if you're the woman at the well and all of a sudden you are the one that's getting that explained to you, right? Like Jesus just read you. He just looked right through you and just said, look, this is what's going on with you, right? And now you this man you're living with, he's not the one either. And so, sir, the woman said, I can see that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. Jesus declared, believe me, woman, the time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and in truth. So I'm sitting there, and Pastor Politz goes on about marriage, and he's talking about that when we place our faith in another person, that other person is going to let us down. If I love Leslie more than I love the Lord, then I'm going to end up being disappointed by Leslie, and it's a pressure that's put on Leslie that's not fair. It's not fair for her to have that load put on her when I love her more than I love the Lord. Because there's no way that a human being can measure up to the expectations to fulfill me. There's no way that she can fulfill all of my needs and reach the level of unconditional love that I yearn for as a human being, right? I need that to come from the Creator. That's where I need that to come from. I need to understand that my love for the Lord has to be greater than my love for Leslie in order for our marriage to work properly. Because the order of things is so important in the way that a marriage works. And I really am a one that believes in that. Like I messed it up when I was younger at certain points, but as I've grown older and as I've watched lots of marriages in my family, and lots of marriages in Leslie's family, lots of marriages with my friends, and you see the order of things, right? And you see the order of things by the way that the Lord put things like there's just the way things are supposed to be. And when you break those order of things, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for sickness. You're setting yourself up for failure in your marriage. And so his message right there yesterday was about marriage. Well, I just couldn't help but think if we just took this whole passage and talked about it from health. If I was to read this and I was to say, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. What Jesus is saying right there to me is the same thing that I have felt about Snickers bars my whole life. It's the expression of dopamine in the left hemisphere. It's the you can't ever get enough. Like you can't get enough corn chips. There's times that I would go to a Mexican restaurant and I would eat baskets of chips. I'm no kidding. It would be 3 or 4 baskets of chips, and Leslie might have had a couple of chips. Like maybe she had part of a basket, and we would get queso, and we would have salsa, and I'm sitting there and I've got salt all over the whole thing, and I'm eating it as fast as I can, and it's like I just can't get enough of it. Like there's the next chip is the next. It's just the person that eats this chip will hunger for another chip. The person that eats this chip just that they won't get the fulfillment of the order of things because of the way that they're going about things, right? And I know that may sound silly to you, but I can attest now, after 2 years of cleaning up my diet, and 4 years now, we started our 5th year in January of exercise, that I now understand this level of what we're talking about. That it's like the chip is like I haven't had a corn chip in 2 years, and I probably had baskets of chips before that because I had everything out of order. I had things out of order, and I'll show you that eating red meat and all the things that they talk about and fats and all the things. I'll show you tomorrow night what my triglycerides are. Then I'll show you what my cholesterol is, and I'll show you what my blood sugar is and what my A1C is, right? Because if you want to test all that stuff and you want to say, like, man, that stuff will make you sick. Bacon and eggs every day will make you sick. Well, so far, no. Maybe it's going to take 4 years. Maybe it's going to take 5 years. Maybe it's going to take 15 years. I'm going to have to get some really bad results from this blood work. But everyone who drinks this water will get thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give him will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give him will become in him a spring of water welling up of eternal life. That's the way I feel about my diet now. That's the way I feel about it because I finally got what he was trying to say to me. Like, look, there's some foods that you're supposed to eat, and there's some foods that you're not supposed to eat. There's a certain amount of exercise that you're supposed to get, and you need that exercise. I mean, how many people just refuse to exercise? How many people just refuse to eat whole foods? I'm not going to eat whole foods. I'm not going to quit drinking my Dr. Peppers. I'm not going to give up my sweet tea. What you're basically saying, and I wish you would listen to it when you read this passage. What you listen to is you're saying you will never be fulfilled. You'll never have enough ice cream to get you to where you want to go. You can't do it, because now you can tie in your neurology, and you can tie in the neurology that goes along with the physiology that goes along with the dopamine receptors that says, nope, you won't ever get enough ice cream. All you'll do is you'll down regulate your receptors, your dopamine receptors, to the point where you have to have more and more and more ice cream. You can't just have a scoop of ice cream. You got to have 3 scoops of ice cream. Then you got to have an entire big old giant bowl. Then you got to have a bowl of ice cream with chocolate chip cookies stuffed in the side of it. And you got to have chocolate syrup sprinkled over the top of that. And then you got to have a whole half gallon of ice cream. And then you got to have something else that goes with it, right? You can never be fulfilled, because the physiology and the neurology that goes along with those poisons, well, what they will do is they will downregulate your receptors to the point where you upregulate your input till the point where you make yourself sick. You'll never get there. And believe me, woman, as Jesus says, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. For salvation is from the Jews. Salvation is from Jesus. Salvation is from the one that gave us the whole Creator himself, right? Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. Get to the point where we can live in spirit and truth. Keep striving every day to fulfill your purpose. Keep striving every day to get to that point where that you live in that spirit. When you live in the spirit, there's no temptation that you cannot overcome. When you walk in the spirit, there is no cheat day. It's the craziest thing ever. Why would I want to have a cheat day from my wife? Right? And what I learned from Tommy yesterday is, once I have that relationship with God, I have one God. I don't have a whole plethora of gods. I just have one God, right? And when I have that one God, that's why I have one woman for life. I don't need another woman for life. I've been fulfilled by that one woman that I have for life, that because I understand that relationship. Now, I didn't understand it really deeply. I got some wisdom on it yesterday, right? There's some depth that I learned because I've walked it long enough now. And that's what I'm saying to us when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to getting your nervous system checked. There is a spirit and there is a truth. And once you get really tied into it, you can walk freely anywhere you want to walk on this earth without temptation that you can't overcome. And you will have an eternal life. You will have an eternal passion. You will have an eternal purpose that doesn't get sidetracked by all of those tricks that the schemes of the schemer that try to set us up for it. I hope that was helpful. I'm running out of time for tonight. I'm sorry about the delay for you guys on the radio. I'm sorry I don't know what happened to us, but somehow we got lost. But I hope maybe some of that makes sense to you. I just encourage you to really keep fighting, keep finding your purpose, keep working on it, and set yourself in spirit and in truth, because that's the way for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and in truth. Hope you guys have a great night. Tomorrow night we'll go over some blood work, talk about that, see how it goes. You guys have a great night, and we will talk to you tomorrow.